Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, Nia Jax. Fuck. This is the Two Nerds Podcast.
That was a funny bit, but I want to be clear. Greetings and salutations to everyone except Nia Jax.
I'm Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
And I agree with his sentiments about Nia Jax. This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and today we are talking about the Royal Rumble.
From 1988.
Yep. The short version of the lead-in to why is that we were pretty hyped to watch the Rumble, and then everything happened.
Yeah, basically.
And the more we found out about the Rumble, the less we wanted to watch it. So we decided to watch a Rumble.
And we figured maybe we're being too hard on new wrestling, on new WWE. Maybe they're serving us the same level of meal they've been serving the whole time. And it is us that has changed. So we wanted to put that theory to the test.
We've done this once before. We started reviewing pay-per-views leading up to and theoretically through the Attitude Era, although
that stopped.
Because everything happened, but a different everything at a different time.
Yeah, man.
But we're going to try to revisit it this year, maybe longer. It depends on how often we need a filler podcast. Anyway, you know who's cool?
Guy from Ohio.
Yes.
Passion Killer 711.
Yes.
And the Perennial Rob.
Yes. Perennially. Let's get into it. I feel like we've got a decent amount to say. I don't know if it's always going to be this much, but like going back to 88, you weren't alive.
No, this was before I existed.
And I was 4.
So, I've also never actually watched this. I've gone back and watched a bunch of old wrestling from before I started watching wrestling, matches here and there, but I've never sat down and watched this before. And it was a very interesting experience because a lot of it is weirdly different and not the ways I expected it to be.
I think the biggest thing that was a mark of generational weirdness, one of those, things that you forget used to be different. The heater's about to kick on. That's not different.
They never hear it.
The first match, our opening contest between Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude. Rick Rude has Ricky Steamboat in a submission hold. Ricky Steamboat slaps the shit out of the mat.
Like, so much so that I don't remember the results of this. I may have looked it up on Wikipedia at some point in the last, 30 years, but I've never seen the show. So Ricky Steamboat gets put into a camel clutch and immediately begins tapping out, and I'm like, what? Instantly? Really? But then the match doesn't end, and I realized that this takes place before tapping out was a thing.
It was verbal submission only. According to our research, with the help of the Two Nerds intern, it was either popularized / brought into wrestling by Taz or Ken Shamrock.
Depending on the histories you read. May have been that Taz brought it in ECW and Ken brought it to the WWF. But that, it's just so strange to me. Because it's such a good piece of really obvious visual storytelling that it is startling to me that the old carny wrestling did not have this. It seems so obvious to me, but that's just because it's been around basically my whole life, and it was so weird to see Ricky Steamboat just fucking bongo drumming the mat, trying to get the audience worked up for his eventual power out. It was the first match on the card, so it really just highlighted that shit's gonna be weird. Shit's gonna be different. Strap in.
And it was, but it wasn't.
A lot of stuff was different, though.
There were things. There's definitely things worth talking about. You know what wasn't different? The commentary was god-awful.
It was god-awful in a unique way.
Yes.
In that there was a good commentator, Jesse the Body Ventura, and there was a bad commentator, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I've heard Vince's old commentary. It's always been bad. He was in rare fucking form to this particular show. Holy fuck. He's so terrible.
Just awful.
And like that, maybe that's partially me having higher like expectations. This was back in the day before people knew what good things were, I guess. But he didn't. Vince McMahon, either the character of Vince McMahon or presumably the real human at this point, and now I assume, doesn't know the name of a single wrestling move. Not one. He's never learned the name of a single wrestling move, and he's the owner of the world's biggest wrestling company. He's the play-by-play guy! This is the equivalent of if John Madden didn't know what the fucking positions were called. The ball thrower, man, he throws the ball! What
a maneuver! And some of you guys know this. I've gone back and watched some old school wrestling, but rarely with the volume up.
Yeah, he's so bad. I honestly, Michael Cole, I'm sorry. I have been giving you undue stick my entire life. Because if you've had this asshole in your ear the whole time, and you've done what you've done, you're a fucking wizard!
Talk about what a maneuver it is, Cole. The people love that. So that's worth mentioning. Also, God, trying to listen to the announcer's call over Rick Rude's music was cacophony.
Yeah, the show opened. It just opened. Like, the show is happening now. The announcers were talking about the upcoming card, and Rick Rude's cacophonous, jangly horn music, it seems to be getting louder with every single word they say.
The amount of distress in Vince's voice constantly when things aren't going his way brought me so much joy, because he's not supposed to be the head of the company. It's supposed to be Jack Tunney at that point.
Right, in kayfabe.
In kayfabe. And he doesn't want people to know he is because of reasons. So every time shit starts going pear-shaped, you can just hear his skin turning red.
Yeah, because he's in character and he can't be backstage blowing up at people and acting like the world's worst boomer.
So yeah, that's some of the trappings. Another thing was basically until we stopped and Googled it to figure it out, was trying to figure out how this was being broadcast.
Yeah, we had to Google it because obviously, WrestleMania was like 85, you said?
85 was the first
I always
WrestleMania.
forget. I kept thinking this was 89. The whole night, my brain refused to correct that the first Royal Rumble wasn't in 1989. I think because that's when the world started.
We thought maybe it was on closed circuit broadcast at the time, but no, this was just on cable.
Yeah, this was just on TV.
So when they took commercial breaks for the Peacock network,
they did them during the commercial breaks for the Royal Rumble, and that was a jarring experience.
Yeah, it was
but not the show we were watching's fault. So.
No, yeah, because it would go from this broadcast footage where the lights are leaving trails to Olive Garden ads
in fucking 4K.
Yeah.
Going from a fucking 28 pixel Haku to a 4K breadstick is a fucking experience. I do not recommend it, but it is an experience. The first match was good. It was good. It was weird because it was old wrestling.
It was a lot of striking. I forgot how much striking they did back in the day.
Yeah, you forget how. I mean, slow, yes.
Yes.
But I was expecting slow.
Sure.
I was not expecting it to be as was a roughneck match, is what Jesse the Body called it. Because I mean, that's certainly not what Ricky Steamboat is famous for. But boy howdy, there was a lot of just dudes fucking clobbering each other.
I gotta say, the result of the first match was kind of fun. It looked like Rick Rude had stolen a win by throwing the ref at Ricky Steamboat when he came off the top rope. Another thing which was worth mentioning, they were doing the top rope count still back then. That used to be illegal, for those of you who don't know. But he steals a pinfall victory, his music's playing, he leaves, and then the announcer's like, your winner, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, by disqualification.
Yeah, a shout outs to refs back in the day who hadn't been, I don't know, conceptually nerfed yet. Because this dude was tough as balls. He took a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat fucking full on to the face and, like, rolled up.
I think it was Hebner. I think that was Hebner.
I may have been I couldn't tell. They were all so blurry. But he just rolled up, and then instead of being, I don't know, some sort of person with a horrible traumatic brain injury who has no short-term memory like all modern referees, he remembered that Rick Rude had shoved him into that other man and disqualified him for it after getting up.
Which was pretty good.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I'd like more of that back.
Then we went into a weightlifting record setting with Dino Bravo.
That was, I must admit, was great heel work because it was the longest fucking thing in the universe. It wasn't a Hardy concert, okay? I'll give it that. It could have been worse. But it was perhaps time. Physicists should study this segment to feel the dilation of time.
They milked it for a long while.
Which, I mean, was perfect.
Yeah.
I say that because it was, like, it extended, my hair grew grayer during this segment. But that was the point. They were absolutely milking it for as long as possible to try and, one, fill airtime, and two, piss the audience off.
I feel like part of it was just Vince McMahon's love of picking thing up what is very heavy.
Oh, yeah, it could be more than one thing.
Sure, yeah.
But, yeah, they clearly, Jesse and the fella whose name I have forgotten, even though he was in the Rumble later.
Dino Bravo.
Yeah.
He is replacing Cody Rhodes on our poster.
It's a good choice.
Thanks.
But he's they're both heels, and so they're trying their best to piss the audience off.
I don't know that
whilst
Jesse
maintaining the thinnest veneer of that's not what we're doing, we swearsies.
Jesse was so genuine with his, look, you don't like him, that's fine, but let the man try.
And the sheer genuineness of it worked because it pissed them off more. Because it sounded like he was actually upset, which made them want to boo more.
This is also in kayfabe, like heavy kayfabe. This was before the steroid trial.
Yeah, this was pre-steroid trial. This was it's not just still real to me, damn it. It's real to basically everyone, which again baffles me. I'm fully aware that this is me taking my perspective of having known wrestling was fake my whole life, essentially, and after like the age of 8, and projecting it into the past, because to me this was pretty good pro wrestling, but this is not what real humans look like when they're fighting. Like when people are actually fighting, this is not what they look like. And we didn't know, but we just didn't know. Like,
I mean, some people knew, but, like, they were assholes.
Yeah. But this was deep in kayfabe, and as I understand it, the weightlift that he eventually attempts for the world record is not recognized.
No, because you can tell he jostles the bar and Jesse has to actually help him put it back up on there, which is what disqualifies it.
And it wasn't like regulation, blah,
Sure.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that dude did unassisted lift 600 pounds, so whatever, it's more than I can lift.
Very impressive. There was a lady during the Rick Rude, Ricky Steamboat match with a megaphone that lasted most of the match.
Yeah, they took that away from her after, or she stopped using it of her own volition. I don't know which. Although she had a megaphone on her fucking hat, so I have a guess. But it lasted that long. I don't feel like you'd get you wouldn't get past the parking lot with that thing now.
No, absolutely not.
Nor should you. I want to be clear. That's not a thing I want to bring back. The fans should not have megaphones.
Yeah, no. The air horns of the 90s were bad enough. Our next contest was the Glamour Girls, whose names I keep forgetting, Judy Martin and Leilani Kai, against the Jumping Bomb Angels, Norio Tateno and Itsuki Yamazaki. If I pronounce those wrong, I'm better than Vince McMahon because I could read and see what they were. 2 out of 3 falls match for the WWF Women's Tag Team Championship. Yes, that existed back then. It was 15 minutes long. It felt like 45.
The Jumping Bomb Angels were good.
Yes, they were, and
They were quite good.
They deserved their victory.
The Glamour Girls were 80s women's wrestlers in America. They did what they got paid to do. I'm not gonna shit talk them from 30 years in the future. More, God, more, isn't it? Oh God, I'm so old. It's 35, isn't it? Fuck. Oh,
It's slightly less than that because I'm 37. I don't even know anymore.
but I'm not. But like they were doing a job and they did it, and they did a serviceable one. But the Jumping Bomb Angels were actually quite good.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching them. Hey, the Glamour Girls could take a bump, you know?
So I do like that's more than I can say for most of the divas.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
fucking.
Hey, there's not really much to say about that contest. I like the fact that Jimmy Hart switched the color of his jacket between this match and the Rumble to match who he was escorting.
I like that they. Again, it's so weird. The WWF Women's Tag Team Championship got 15 minutes. This was in
Yeah.
1988. I need to make that really clear.
It got more than the main event.
In the mid 2000s, that didn't exist, and the women's title got maybe 5 on an average pay-per-view. What happened?
Well, and the fact that this card has 2 best 2 out of 3 Falls Tag Team Championship matches.
No, 2 best 2 out of 3 falls tag team matches. The second one is for no title. The second one is
it
just
wasn't.
a
The main
tag
event
match.
was just for reasons. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's wrestling, man. We didn't know what we were doing. We were still figuring it out.
Speaking of, still figuring it out, the Rumble.
This was the second ever Royal Rumble.
The first one was like a weird
It was at a house show.
house show, like
It was only 12 people.
it was the closed beta for the Royal Rumble.
Vince hated the idea from the start.
Didn't think it would work. Didn't think it would get over. Thought it was stupid.
And then when the event didn't draw, that kind of put it on the back burner for a long time. But we have it here now. At 1988.
And it's a fucking it happened.
On Wikipedia, it even says a new entrant came out approximately every 2 minutes.
Yeah, they were keeping the time was not close. They didn't really give too much of a shit about that timer. But
There was some confusing shit too because like, what was it? Volkov followed Don Morocco out, or Boris Zukov followed Danny Davis.
I feel like it was Volkov. Volkov was one of those two. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
In that little fucking. I'm pretty sure that was an actual legit botch. That wasn't an angle.
Yeah.
Those two dudes were confused about who was next, so they both went out there.
And it was weird. And
You could. This is so easy. It's so easy to tell that no one in this match knows what the fuck this match is.
Except One Man Gang.
One Man Gang got the memo.
Yeah. He was the winner of the last one, so that makes sense. But it was nice in a way because there was a lot of action, and that was really exciting. They didn't have what was most egregious in the 20 teens, 4 guys hugging in a corner or everyone taking a nap.
Yeah, like, there'll be 12 guys in the ring, but 10 of them have been laying down for 10 minutes.
And, like, I get why you do that, but make it less fucking obvious. The same thing with a rest hold versus a working hold. I understand you guys are catching your breath, you're getting some resuscitation to your cardio.
Time to communicate, all that stuff.
Yeah, that too. But, like, work the hold while you're doing it. Don't just sit on someone and be like, whew!
Whew! I sure could use me a breather. But there was fucking none of that here.
No.
This was 20 dudes all doing a wrestling match at the exact same time. This had all the coordination of if you gave a room full of 13-year-olds from different bands and different schools instruments they didn't play and told them to fucking go nuts.
Another surreal thing was heel Bret Hart.
He was a good heel.
Yeah, he did a great job. He really did. But I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, this was before he got over.
Right. So it was just a little weird to me. But do we want to do the whole rundown? I guess because it's not recent. You guys have no idea who is in this fucking thing. I'll just go through it real quick. It's just some names. Bret Hart, Tito Santana, Butch Reed, Jim Neidhart, Jake Roberts, Harley Race, Jim Brunzel, Sam Houston, Danny Davis, Boris Zukov, Don Morocco, who I thought was Rocky Johnson, but his face looked weird, and I didn't know if it was just weird footage, but it was because Vince kept saying The Rock, so I figured
I think Vince probably tried to fucking get that name over like 4 or 5 times.
It might have been over, who knows? But it's Vince. He's the Big Daddy Cool Diesel guy. Nikolai Volkov, Jim Duggan, Ron Bass, B. Brian Blair, Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, the Ultimate Warrior, who appeared when I wasn't looking, and
disappeared when I wasn't looking.
One Man Gang, and Junkyard Dog. I don't know about half a dozen of those guys.
I know that they are all rough. They are all roughly muscle man shaped human beings. Boy howdy, were all of these the same motherfucker. Like, somewhere in the middle age, a good amount of muscle, maybe some fat guy. Many of them were impossible to tell apart unless I already knew who they were.
Yeah, except for Stripey Pants Man with a shirt.
Yeah, the guy who was the half-dressed Beetlejuice impersonator.
Yes, yeah.
That guy stood out because he was terrible. Not as a wrestler, he was fine. His outfit was just, wow, god-awful.
Yeah, I really hated it a lot. But this was pretty fun. We both knew the result going in, but who were you pulling for watching this match? Who really got you excited?
Oh, man, Bret Hart did a good job as heel Bret Hart. He lasted a long time.
Hell yeah.
But, like, I gotta be honest, dude, I was rooting for the One Man Gang.
Yeah?
He's the only one who got the memo.
He cleared the ring, man.
He came in, and the match instantly became more interesting and fun. The second he showed up.
Yeah. I like Hillbilly Jim. I think he's underrated in terms of, wrestling prowess, putting on a show.
Jim Duggan wins because that is written into the sands of time. Jim Duggan wins the first televised Royal Rumble.
Man, I don't like Jim Duggan.
Like, as a person?
Yes. I also don't care for his gimmick, and we talked about this a little bit while watching the show. I got a promo from him from the 70s that showed up as like an ad on Facebook. Like, you know how Facebook's like, hey, here's a private group you might want to join, and some of the posts they have, like you would want as a private group. And it was a promo from Jim Duggan from 1975, 76. He was pretty young. And I finally get his gimmick. I don't like it, but I know what it is.
Could you explain it?
He is your goofy uncle trying to entertain you.
Oh my god! No, that's his gimmick, isn't it?
It was so much clearer when he was younger.
He's a dad. he's the kind of dad who does dances on TikTok.
Sure, yeah, that's a good way to put it. But like back then style.
Yeah, but like in the 70s and 80s.
Pulling a weird voice and like silly
He
faces.
does fucking pull my finger.
Yes, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's his gimmick. I've always just kind of thought of it as proto Eugene, if I'm being honest. But no, that's the gimmick. He does that gimmick very well.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't either. I could like a dad gimmick, but not this one.
Not that one. No. I think you could do that in a way I like, but he doesn't. This match was just, it happened.
It was a little bland. I mean, the Royal Rumble without spots, and I have to say, at this point, did wrestling have spots? As you and I said during the match, you know, talking as we do, well, we very rarely, listener, and I don't mean to break any illusions, sit in utter silence when we're not doing the podcast.
Yeah, it's not like we, being roommates since like 2007, don't talk to each other except for this 30-minute prescribed block during the week, and then at all other times stare at each other hatefully. That's not the vibe.
Yeah, this isn't the Zaibatsu. Although, maybe that's why they thought the podcast goes long sometimes. We're just so excited to be able to talk to one another. But we were talking about how, you know, match choreography wasn't really a thing during these times.
No, I mean, like, certain people would engage in such, and you get some of the all-time classic matches from it. But most of the time, it's just go out there, here's the high spot, here's the finish, you got 10 minutes, do your fucking job. I book, I don't fucking script for you, go. Make me money.
If they even had a high spot.
Yeah, if they had a high spot.
Yeah.
And it might just be as simple as 10 minutes, here's the finish, you go over. Go, make me money.
That was another thing, too, is that the referee did not have communication on them.
No, not at all. He was the referee in maybe in the first match, in the first couple matches, and in the last match as well, although I kind of got used to it by then, is so much more obviously part of the work. Like, the referee so much more obviously will count pinfalls that are not actually pinfalls if that's the planned finish, and will, like, it just is so much more obviously part of the work. I really kind of want to know when call it down the middle like you're actually refereeing a match became the rough style guide for wrestling referees.
Well, and you bring that up, and in the Jumping Bomb Angels scored their pin with one of their opponent's shoulder off the mat.
Like, fully off the mat.
And then Jesse points it out, and they roll back footage, and Vince is like, well, yeah, that's what happened. We saw that. Well, who knows what's going on? I think their shoulders were down. Because he's trying to preserve the fact that they were supposed to win, and Jesse's like, yeah, but they're not.
Shout out to Jesse the Body Ventura, who didn't let Vince's ass get away with a single thing all night.
That was extremely enjoyable for me.
Like, this dude clearly knew he was big enough that Vince couldn't fire him, because he kept fucking roasting that dude.
Our next match was the Islanders, Haku and Tama, the twin brother of Rikishi, for those who don't know. And the Young Stallions, Paul Roma and Jim Powers, of all people. And at one point, Vince makes a comment about toes. There is a beat, and Jesse Ventura goes, it's pretty racist.
He does an official 80s style. I think that was a racist remark. But, like, fucking Vince says, like, what, I think it's some...
He said, look at those toes. They could curl on a branch and hang upside down.
He could hang from the top rope.
Yeah.
Just some really racist shit to say out of nowhere. And then Jesse the Body Ven's like a beat, and he goes, bro, cringe. Essential. And then, like, he doesn't let it go. He spends the rest of that match calling Vince a racist. Right and good.
It was glorious. Him and Vince arguing, you could tell he was getting under Vince's skin, literally. It wasn't a work. I mean, it might have been, like, permitted, you know what I mean? But it's not like... Vince was reacting like, stop trying to make me break character, you shitface.
And, I mean, Vince is known for that being a thing that he allows.
Sure.
Vince very much works on a is it funny rule.
Yeah.
If it gets over, you can piss him off.
Yes.
That's allowed. If it doesn't get over, you're fucked.
But for me, the main event was the match of the night. I mean, it had Haku in it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get real salty when the main event of the Royal Rumble isn't the Royal Rumble. I get upset. But this was before they were trying it out. This was a weird gimmick match
and it didn't
that Pat
mean
Patterson
anything.
thought could be cool.
Like, Jim Duggan won the match, and that's what he won.
Yeah, okay, good. And then we move on.
Yeah,
so
there's
it makes
no
sense.
guaranteed
It makes
title
sense that
shot.
in this era, before anyone knows that this is a thing, before we know if it's even going to work, you have the actual proven draw.
Yeah.
And it worked. Fucking the Islanders versus the Young Stallions is a great match.
A great 2 out of 3 falls match. It was cool to see the Islanders win both falls.
Yeah, 2-0.
Yeah.
You don't see that shit anymore.
I mean, you want to talk about the rest of the show feeling different. Once the Islanders hit the ring, it felt like a modern wrestling match. These guys were so ahead of their time in terms of the strikes they did do, the flippy shit they did.
Like, the Islanders were the kind of people who inspired the generations to come,
Yeah.
and it's really obvious when you see them wrestle. Because suddenly it was an actual good wrestling match happening.
Yeah, and props to Jim Powers and Paul Roma for selling well. I mean, they're not slouches by any
They
means.
held up their end of the match.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you gotta. If you're in the ring with Haku, you better fucking hold up your end of the match. You want to make it out?
He'll help you hold it up.
Staple your hands to your end of the match.
The only other thing that happened on the show, 4 matches, was a big contract signing between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant for his title.
Oh, and approximately 90 promos about that also.
Yeah, like they did a lot of recaps, they did a lot of promos, and my god, the recaps used to be really bad.
Yeah, I've long said that the thing that WWE is the best in the world at, and it's the thing they're best at, is their recap packages. I really want to know when that started, because not now. Also, AEW's getting better at those.
Oh yeah, they are. Well, you get more money, you hire better producers, basically, is the long and short of it. But yeah, this was okay. It was your standard Hulk Hogan fare, standard Honor the Giant fare, standard Ted DiBiase fare, which upped the quality of the entire situation by at least 1 star.
It's so sad for Ted DiBiase Jr. that he just didn't inherit like a fart whiff of his father's charisma.
No.
And like that is just unfortunate. That's the luck of the draw, my dude.
I really liked how most of the guys in this show just looked like regular dudes in regular clothes or regular wrestling gear, half-dressed Beetlejuice aside, except for Ted DiBiase and Virgil, who were in ridiculous over-the-top lame suits.
And Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy Hart also, but he's so Jimmy Hart that it felt regular.
That's a normal Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
It's not a normal human man,
That's what
but it's a
that's
normal
supposed to
Jimmy.
look like, yeah.
Whereas, yes, Ted DiBiase and Virgil were fucking... They got the drip. Fucking ice in their veins, my brother.
They looked ridiculous.
I
but,
loved it.
Yes.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
They were so hateable in every single moment they're on the screen. God, fucking Ted DiBiase was so good at his job.
I look forward to seeing more from him as the years roll by. Mean Gene and the Fink also worth mentioning. Both of them did great jobs at what they do.
I mean, yeah, Mean Gene and Fink, they're rocks. They don't move. They're just good at their job.
I also love anytime Mean Gene is starting to lose his patience. Like, you could tell when Frenchie refused to speak English, he was actually starting to get under Gene's skin a little bit.
I love when Mean Gene is so willing to go with the bit.
That too, yeah.
That's they're asking for silence. It's important that you give them silence. I am saying this. This is a thing that you should all do.
It was a fun walk down memory lane. It was okay.
Honestly, the Islanders match was good. The first match was good.
If we hadn't ended on the Islanders match, if we had ended on the Rumble and a Jim Duggan victory, I would be a lot less favorable about.
The Rumble happened. I can't in good conscience say it was good.
It was slow.
It was slow, and perhaps it is just my fried out Zoomer brain, as it were, even though I am not a Zoomer. But it's just, there was just no structure. It was just a bunch of kids in a McDonald's play place.
I mean, well, I don't think that is any sort of, looking back, thinking you know better. I don't think they knew at the time what they were doing.
So it doesn't tell a cohesive narrative. It's just a big, it's a rugby scrum that ends with Jim Duggan.
Two things hit in that match. The most of the opening with Bret Hart and Tito Santana, and a little bit that followed until the ring got a little full, and One Man Gang clearing the ring. Those were good. Solid parts of the Rumble.
And they establish things that will come to be important later in the Rumble.
It did also go on for another 25 minutes, though.
Yeah, that is also fucking true. We might... again, the loose idea is to maybe do more of these, moving forward through time, watching the Royal Rumble.
Because that's the best match. I don't think we mentioned that. That's part of this whole shebang.
Yeah, that's the best match of the year. It is the best match of the year. It is the coolest, most interesting, most dynamic time in the WWE's calendar. And it also is a good, barometer for what wrestling looks like at the time.
Yeah, you get so much of it. You get a regular card, and then you get this nonsense.
And you get to see a big section of the roster. You get to see who they're interested in, who the fans are interested in. So I'm interested in looking at more of these, but this one was mid.